everyone. My name is Paris Dobbins, your host of the Good News Theater, and we have two special guests with us today. They are with an organization called Better Angels. They are volunteers, and they've got some great information for us today. Welcome, Rob and Anthony.
Thank
Good
you,
morning.
Paris.
Pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's good to have you. So you guys belong to what's called Better Angels, is that right?
It is right.
What is Better Angels?
Better Angels is a national organization, a nonprofit, and its mission is to depolarize America.
Okay.
We are a bipartisan group of people, conservatives and liberals.
Okay.
We call them Reds and Blues, and we're working together to make it possible for us to have a national conversation beginning at the local level without rancor, vitriol, or anger. We have different views, we have different feelings about these things. We find a way to express our views to one another, to hear each other, and to work together for the good of the country.
So how did you all get started? Like, what inspired someone to come up with Better Angels?
The history of it is that two guys who worked for the Institute of American Values, a nonprofit foundation that was working on family issues and the importance of thrift to individuals and families and a number of other things, were watching our country in the run-up to the 2016 election. And after the election, one of them, who lives on the Upper East Side in New York City, said, everybody's best-loved relative apparently died last night. The streets are quiet. People are walking around with tears in their eyes. It's a ghost town. The other one lives in South Lebanon, Ohio. They're dancing in the streets because of the outcome of the election.
Okay, yes.
So
certainly.
these two guys said, well, we should do something because it appears that our nation is headed for a civic divorce. What
Okay.
can we do? So they had a workshop, 2.5-day workshop, and they filled the workshop in no time at all. They got somebody to lead the workshop. It was a great success, Reds and Blues together for 2.5 days, expressing their views, getting to know each other. And then they wondered, well, what are we going to do now? So apparently the answer was have a lot more workshop and do some other things as well.
So when you say red and blue teams, what does red stand for? What does blue stand for?
So
Represent.
the Reds and Blues are the political spectrum that we see on the media today,
Okay.
with Reds being your conservatives, your Republicans, Blues being your liberals or your Democrats.
Okay.
And the premise of the workshops and the premise of Better Angels as well is to have an even distribution, if you will, or an even paired membership, if you will, of representatives from the red and the blue side. Okay. So, for example, I voted for Trump. Rob, not so much. Okay. And when we came here for the sole purpose, not being a single interviewee, but to be a pair of interviewees, to have that representation from the liberal side of the perspective, the blue, and the red side of the perspective, the conservative, myself. Okay. And so that's why we have the Reds and Blues. And when we do things, we try to do them as a pair to show that representation that, hey, we can do this and we don't have to be enemies of each other.
So when you say we can do this, you mean like have a political conversation? Is that what we're talking about?
That's correct.
Okay. So with being with Better Angels, what kind of like impact have you had in the communities thus far?
Well, Rob's probably had a huger impact because he's regional.
We work throughout the country.
Okay.
And we want to get Reds and Blues talking with one another because we think when they're talking to each other and they're being respectful in how they speak and how they listen, we think that something's going to happen when they're brought together. So we do these workshops and people come and they go through these exercises and they tell us at the end of the day and in their feedback forms, they tell us that their stereotyping of the folks on the other side has decreased. They recognize that this group of 7 people from the other side have 7 different viewpoints. They don't all have one viewpoint. So those guys' opinions are just a group of opinions and not a monolithic opinion. Okay. And those people on the other side have the same view of the other group. The other thing that happens is they tell us that their belief in the good intentions and the basic humanity of the people on the other side is greatly increased. They see these people as individuals, as people, and as people, apparently, who they might become friends with.
Okay.
They say that they like this experience so much that they want to keep doing it. We had a Red-Blue workshop in East Hampton in March. A Red-Blue alliance formed after that workshop. And this group, half red, half blue, every one of which has been through that workshop, is working on issues in East Hampton and regionally. This is happening all over the country. Well, not all over the country, in many places.
And a
many
couple of
places.
things I mean, Rob's talking specifically about the individual changes that we're making. And we're making changes in individual lives, okay?
Okay.
People whose perspective, people whose views are changing. Not necessarily their values, but their understanding. That's number one. But then the bigger part, and again, I'm going to defer back to Rob because he's more knowledgeable of this, and that is the community changes. Because I remember one of the alliances, as Rob talked about, okay, it's a group of individuals that came from the workshop, and they decide, you know, we believe enough in this that we want to continue to meet on a consistent, regular basis and make a difference in our community. And one of those alliances, if I remember correctly, has impacted local politics.
So the Southwestern Ohio Alliance it resulted from the first workshop that happened. And these folks have put legislation in front of the Ohio legislature for paid family leave. Reds and blues together advocating for paid family leave.
Okay.
A subcommittee of their group is working on an effort to try to get money out of politics. So it could be something that is a very local issue. If there's something that's really divisive in your community, a Red-Blue Alliance might find a way to try to address that issue, look at it through a conservative lens and a liberal lens together with the people in the community, because the folks in this alliance live in that community, they're part of it,
Okay.
and they don't bring just one set of values to the process, and they've found a way of talking with and working with each other that sustains them when the discussion gets really difficult, or when somebody reverts to old habits and says something they probably should not have said. There's a lot of room now for that person to say, there's a better way to say that. Let me put it this way.
Okay, so basically, we're looking for a more harmonious country. Is that what we're trying to do? And I say harmonious because in these conversations of adversity, because that's what it is. You all are trying to create where people can have conversations and just understand each other, not change your point of views, just to understand what another person is saying. Because I was just thinking, I was like, well, I don't know how well we're going to do with changing points of views with everyone,
Right.
But
And if we
just
don't try to-
communicate.
If we don't try to force people to change their view, then the defensive walls come down. And
Right.
once those defensive walls come down, now we can have a conversation. And that's really where lives change, is when we have a conversation. But if I try to change your view, or you try to tell me how stupid I am, what an idiot I am, or the fact that I voted for Trump, I must be out of my mind. Now all of a sudden my defensive walls comes up, and we can't
Right.
even talk.
Right,
We
exactly.
can't even talk. So we keep those defensive walls down.
I would say that we're not looking to end up in some happy middle ground
Okay.
where the views of the person on the left and the views of the person on the right are brought together in some happy place and we can now kumbaya together. That's not what we're looking for.
Correct.
People should stick to their views. That's part of what makes us a vibrant
That's what makes
society.
America, right? Exactly.
But we can disagree without being disagreeable to one another. And wouldn't it be great if, when you and I disagree, we arrive at an accurate understanding of exactly where we disagree? So I'm not saying of you, well, you hate all immigrants. And you're not saying of me, well, you just want to take down all of the border controls, don't you, and let all the terrorists in.
Okay.
So if we abandon our notion of what the other person thinks and ask them what they think, then they'll tell us what they think, and then we'll know. And now, if we disagree, we can say, okay, so these are the things where we don't have common ground, where our values or the policies that we've devised to come at this thing can't be reconciled. But isn't there a large area in this where we do agree on a bunch of stuff? And maybe we can work on that stuff and leave this stuff to be disagreed on.
You know, one of the questions you had asked earlier was how did we get involved? And I kind of want to share my story because that is exactly what Rob's talking about. Where on social media, I was contacted by an acquaintance who, soon after the election, had asked me, says, hey, I've got a friend, okay, a liberal friend, who is quite distraught. Again, as we were talking about immediately after the election. If you look at the stereotypical blue that the media was projecting and being upset and worried and I mean all kinds of emotional feelings about Trump getting elected, okay? Meltdown for some. And this friend of his wanted to meet with a conservative, somebody who voted for Trump because he just wanted to hear what they had to say. So I said, I'm pretty open-minded. Sure, let me meet with him. I'll have lunch with him. And so I met this gentleman, and we met at a local establishment. And I said, listen, right off the bat, I bet you there's a lot more things that we have in common than we don't. And we sat down and we talked for 2 hours over lunch. And I would say for an hour and a half, I did a lot of listening because he had a lot of emotions on his mind, okay, and in his heart. He had things that he was concerned about, worried about, afraid of, okay? And I listened. And I spent maybe 30 minutes talking, okay, out of the 2 hours. And at the end of the day, we were acquaintances, okay? Today, we're friends, okay? He's part of the alliance, as I am. He's the chair, one of the co-chairs for the alliance, and he's a phenomenal guy. And we have lunch on a continuous, regular basis, and we talk about things. And I jokingly went on to Facebook later on that day, and I said, hey, I just had lunch with a liberal, okay? And it turned out to be a great time, okay? And so I said, to all my conservative friends out there, I recommend you go out and have lunch with a liberal. And to my liberal friends, you go out and have coffee with a conservative, okay? As a result of that, Rob reaches out and says, hey, we're already doing that. It's called Better Angels. And from there, East Hampton, Hampton. And his story is probably something very similar.
I just have a question. It's like a lot of people do take their positions in life very seriously, and it's not even about a view. It's just about, you know, the misfortunes of their lives. And so, you know, for someone to have lived a life with an unfortunate life, an indigent life or whatever, by no fault of their own, and then, you know, want to have a conversation with someone about it, it's like, what is the purpose of it? Just for understanding? Because some people think, I have a conversation with you, they want to see change. What are you going to do to help me? You know what I'm saying? It's just, that's where some of the energy, some of the, you know, strong beliefs, this is where a lot of the breakdown, the conversations happen. It's because it's like, okay, you're probably living a great lily white life in Connecticut. You know, I don't live that life, you know, on Eastern Avenue in Springfield. And then it's like, okay, you know, so we'll have a conversation and we'll talk about it. But what exactly is the point of this conversation? This is what I'm just trying to get to the bottom of, saying, you know, because this is probably where a lot of reluctance in me come in. You know, because I love having conversations. I don't have any expectations of you or you to change my life. Right. I know it was a quote I read the other day. It said that I think it was by Oprah Winfrey. It was said, the reason why I'm living my dream is not because I'm special. It's because I obeyed the calling of the dream. I thought that was pretty powerful. And so everyone doesn't have that understanding about to follow the calling of the dream or the calling of what they have to offer. So we're stuck wherever we are.
So in these conversations,
right,
the goal is to get to know the other person's experience, get to understand, It's not to change them or persuade them of anything. How you show up to Better Angels is how you leave. Nobody's trying to persuade anyone of anything.
Okay.
If you
Good.
happen to come away with a warmer feeling towards people on the other side, if you see them now as human, when previously you saw them as non-human, we think that's a good thing for the country and probably for all of us individually.
Certainly. So the purpose of the Better Angels is to bring two people together, two different walks of life or two different views or whatever, and just have a conversation. And during that conversation, we should listen to each other. You know, it shouldn't be anything personal. Or, you know, we should be able to listen to your views as well as you hear my views. I think that a lot of when you speak to some people who have come from unfortunate backgrounds, when they want to speak about certain things, where the animosity comes in is because of some things they didn't have a choice with. You know, and this is why it kind of gets high, you know, what are you going to change? And that's the expectation, you know, if we're going to have a conversation about my views and your views, what kind of solutions can you offer? Because the thing is like,
Boy, that's a tough one.
well,
huh?
it is a tough one. So what I'm saying is the animosity, you know, where you guys are striving to neutralize, it's probably it's going to be a challenge for you guys, you know, especially when you say community by community, you know, town by town, you know, we're trying to make this a great organization where people can join it. And I think it's a great idea. What I'm saying is do you have the tools during these workshops, people to show up, to really deal with that type of animosity with people who are just want to speak about their views?
But that's the key point that you just said. Okay, the key point is that last sentence, that just want to have the opportunity to speak about their views.
Gotcha.
So when we have, if, as you say, you bring in somebody from a less fortunate
Sure.
perspective, and they go, man, I want to be a part of that. I want to be able to express my views and tell them why life sucks where I'm at. Okay. Then what we're looking for is an environment in which they can safely do that, okay, and express themselves.
Safely.
Now, can the Better Angels change their lives?
Right.
The answer is, I don't know. But if we get into experiences where we have different views and different perspectives, maybe we all, no matter where we come from in our background, can take something away from that and make a choice on our own to make changes. Even if it wasn't necessarily our desire, in other words, I'm born into this, or I'm born into that, or this or that, okay? But walk away from there saying, you know what, as a result of this, I feel more empowered, okay? I feel more empowered, and I can make individual choices on my own as a result of hearing people who think like me, as well as hearing from people who may not think like me. But now, as a result of having a safe environment and the opportunity for others to empathize with where I'm coming from, which is part of what Better Angels is about.
Okay.
Some of it is about empathy, understanding another's perspective. May not necessarily disagree it.
Okay, well, you know, I can appreciate that. Let's talk about some of the what you have in some of these workshops.
So could
yeah.
I try
Rewind,
and
okay.
fumble around with this question
Sure,
a
go
little
ahead,
bit?
yeah, sure.
This strikes me as a really tough issue.
Yeah.
Because you know we're oriented towards a very polarized political and civic environment. And so, you know, conservatives, liberals, everybody's sleeves are rolled up, they're ready to get
Sure.
busy
They're ready to-
throwing
yeah.
punches.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to work on. But
Gotcha.
there are a host of other issues in our country that have been present for possibly our entire history. You know, the rich versus the poor, the legacy of slavery and discrimination through the decades to the present. You know, there's a lot of negative stuff going on, and I don't know that Better Angels is oriented or focused on dealing with issues like that.
Well,
But I would say if we're bringing reds and blues together,
Right.
And we have a workshop, which we'll get into
You're
in a
creating
minute,
a
what that's
platform.
about.
Right, right.
So if the people in that workshop form an alliance, and if there's an issue in their community that they want to work on, they have the ability to work on that.
Well, I'm not speaking about the specific issues that happen in the
Mm-hmm.
community. I'm talking about if you want to get people to communicate with one another without the animosity. You know, you want to have, like you and I, we're having conversations today. I'm speaking about my views, speaking about your views. There are some who may not be able to express as clearly as we're doing. And so my question is, what are the tools in your program do you have to sort of neutralize and make someone feel comfortable enough to talk about these things?
That's
The
a great
skills workshop,
question.
the skills workshop, the workshop itself, the debate. Exactly.
So when we decide, when a person
Yeah.
who is kind of called to this work because of what's happening in our country, they look at the news, they look at Facebook, they say, this is horrible. I can't believe that we can't talk to one another. Where are we headed with this? And so they decide to take personal responsibility for fixing it. And they join Better Angels, and they say, I want to organize one of these workshops. I am a conservative. Now, as a conservative organizer, I need to find a liberal organizer. And now we're an organizing pair. And we're going to work together to put on a workshop. We have to find a venue for this to happen, typically a church, and it's got to be free because there's no money.
Right.
And then we need moderators. And so Better Angels has a bunch of trained moderators. So you have two organizers, a venue, a few dates, some moderators who say, that date works for me. And now you have a firm date for a workshop. These organizers go forth, the red goes forth to Reds and says, would you consider coming on this day to listen to and learn from the folks on the other side? Wouldn't you like to have an opportunity to tell a liberal who wants to hear what a conservative thinks?
Okay.
And the blues go forth to the blues and do the same thing in reverse. So the questions that are key for those organizers to ask the people, are you willing to listen to the other side? Are you willing to speak respectfully to the other side? If you're not willing to listen respectfully, you're probably not a match for the Red-Blue Workshop.
So you just have you have a red and blue workshop.
So you screen these folks ahead of time.
Gotcha.
Now, they come to the workshop as they are. We deal with the people who show up. So many of us have bad habits from these years of polarization.
Certainly.
We're inclined to speak unkindly of one another, often across political lines. And sometimes we see that happen in workshops. So we have trained moderators who redirect the conversation to get us back on track. So the moderators are responsible for bringing somebody who's gone off on a tangent, a blue, who's now telling the Reds what they think, instead of telling the group what they learned in this last exercise.
A couple of other things I think
see.
you're asking is
Okay.
what tools are available is what I think you asked.
Right.
Okay.
What kind of
so
tools do you
one of the ones that Rob was alluding to or
Yeah.
expanding on was the workshop. Okay. The workshop is the foundational element, if you will, of the tools as he's just described it. Okay. So that's one aspect, but it goes beyond that with additional workshops that once the workshop is done, then it's a decision on the members. Do we want to continue? Okay, this is step 2. Do we want to continue as an entity moving forward to meet on a consistent, regular basis and take responsibility within our community to influence ourselves in the community to start working better together? So that's step 2, or tool number 2, the alliance itself.
Okay.
Then we go to number 3. There's a skills workshop in which members of the alliance participate in to continue to hone their skills on effective communication,
Gotcha.
on effective collaboration, on effective interaction, okay, and utilizing those skills so that we can have those conversations and be mindful of how we're interacting with others, okay. So that's a third one. The fourth one,
Gotcha.
as we're talking about earlier on, is our debates, okay? Bringing people together from the community to be able to interact with each other in a safe environment without necessarily being members of the Better Angels, but to be able to communicate their thoughts and their feelings on an issue, okay? So that's 4. Now, beyond that, then we have programs that nationwide are being undertaken. We are pursuing them here in the Pioneer Valley. We just haven't gotten there yet. And that is to reach out into the school systems, whether it be the high schools, the universities, the colleges, and tap into that audience, because those young adults have a huge impact, not just on today, but certainly in the future. And so being able to, as an alliance, again, that core group of people going out and meeting and conducting some of these events, the workshops, the debates, in the high schools, in the universities, in other community organizations, and bringing this word to them so that we can build upon it.
Okay.
And perhaps start offering more workshops so that it's not just 7 and 7, but we have 7 here, or 14 here, 14 there, 14 throughout the Pioneer Valley, and now we've got 100 people who are Reds and Blues, 1550, that are a concerted effort to make us a better place.
Okay. What do we have to look forward to from the Better Angels?
You are a conservative like me, or you're a liberal like Rob, and you want to be involved and organize a workshop here in a local area, reach out to the Better Angels website.
Yeah, just give it to them.
And it's www.better-angels.org, and go ahead and provide your contact information, and somebody will be in touch with you to help organize a workshop here locally. And we'll continue to grow.
So it's like a mentor situation. They'll come show you what to do and get you started.
Absolutely. And we'll provide the mentorship, we'll provide the facilitation, we'll provide the direction and the format for the workshop. All we're looking for is somebody to help organize it with a venue, bringing in together the even numbers of Reds and Blues, as well as the observers, and we will help with the structure of it. And so what do we have to offer? We have to offer is bringing people together with different views, different perspectives, to make ourselves a better community, a more engaged and more empowered community. Informed.
Yes.
As individuals and as a community. Individuals, you can't do it as a community if we don't change as individuals.
This is very true. Well, I want to thank you both for coming to the Good News Theater. Thank you very much, Rob. Pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure.
Anthony, nice to meet you also.
Yep.
Now, if you want to reach out to the Better Angels, the website address right below me is www.better-angels.org. www.better-angels.org. Okay, I want to thank you for joining us on the Good News Theater once again, and we'll see you next time. Hello, my name is Paris Dobbins, and I am your host on the Good News Theater. Please join me every Sunday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as I bring to you people of our community who offers pro bono services you need to know about. I am proud to showcase these professionals on the Good News Theater. And don't forget, check out our YouTube channel where you can receive more interviews, more updates, and how you can become a guest on our show and or refer someone to become a guest. And one more thing, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Okay, thank you, and we'll see you then.